Ben McKee, Patrick Brown here inside of Neyland Stadium following Tennessee's 45-14 win to get back into the win column this weekend. And we'll save the third quarter for last. The first half was really good, both offensively and defensively. Had some good on special teams, did have some bad on special teams, but mostly good all around.
Yeah, I think overall, Ben, you saw a cleaner performance from Tennessee. I think they only ended up with 5 penalties for 40 yards. I think only one of those was in the first half, and I think there were only 2 on offense for the entire game. So you saw fewer missed tackles. They did have a couple in the second half, or mainly in the third quarter. But really, you saw Tennessee play cleaner football, which I think was really important coming off what happened last week in the Swamp. Obviously, they did get off to a fast start, lots of big plays on offense. Dylan Sampson had a lot of them. But Joe Milton had the first one on the first play, racing 81 yards for a touchdown. That sort of got Tennessee going. And, you know, when you're hitting those home run plays, it's a lot easier to move the ball and play offense and score points.
Absolutely. And I thought the passing game as a whole took a step forward today, at least in the first half. Joe was hitting guys, and the decision-making was what it needed to be. And Joe kind of took an awkward hit there late in the first half, said it kind of freaked him out. His leg got caught up. Fortunately for him and Tennessee, nothing bad came of that. And I don't think that correlated with some struggles there in the third quarter. It was kind of a funky third quarter there where they just got out of rhythm, it looked like.
Yeah, and it kind of started late in the second quarter when they had that last drive, and Tennessee was just really kind of nonchalant. They still almost scored on it with the throw that Joe had to Chaz Nimrod that was almost a touchdown from about 50 yards out. But yeah, he was started 14-16, I believe. Had a couple touchdown passes, had the long run. Then I think he completed about one in a span of about 12 attempts. Had some misses on some guys that were open that they just didn't connect. But then he kind of bounced back. I know he had one on a shovel pass. I'm not sure how much credit he gets for that. But he did have a good throw right over here to Dante Thornton that was into a tight window just out of reach of a DB. And the offense scored the last 2 drives he was on the field after having one of those lulls. So it's good to see that he was able to sort of work out of it himself. You do wonder how much of that was the knee. It looked pretty scary when it happened. He did come out with like a sleeve on it, right? So that maybe contributed to some of the lulls, but they were able to work out of it, and I think that's they started well and then also finished well with the first team offense.
Yeah, and from a team perspective, you were rotating a lot of guys on both sides of the ball. A lot of guys got nicked up, banged up tonight, especially offensively. Brew McCoy, something happened early on. I mean, he looked fine, and they're playing UTSA, so that's probably why he doesn't go back into the game. But he missed most of the game. Ramel Keaton, his head had a nasty hit.
Jalen Wright missed the second half.
Yep, Jalen. So you kind of had guys shuffling in and out offensively because of injuries on top of what already existed. And then defensively, they were just rotating guys for the sake of rotating guys. And Josh Heupel said tonight that was the plan coming into it. So I'm sure that all contributed to that lull there in the third quarter as well.
Yeah, and defensively, they wanted to rotate more. They've said that from the beginning. They really didn't rotate a whole lot last weekend, but you saw that in this game. David Hobbs gets in on the second series. He's a guy that didn't play last week. Josh Josephs got in at some point in the first half, too. They were even rotated at safety at one point, rotated at corner. So they had a lot more guys playing in this game defensively and offensive. On the offense, they had to shuffle some things around because some guys got banged up. You saw Dylan Sampson more because Jalen Wright only got 4 carries. They had to move some things around the offensive line because John Campbell didn't play a whole lot in the second half. So I think Gerald Mincey was playing both left and right tackle. Dane Davis played center and then moved out to right tackle at one point. So they had a lot of moving pieces, but they were able to piece it together. And I think they had 512 yards of offense, almost 8 yards per play. So pretty good on offense and defensively, really just outside of those 2 drives in the third quarter, UTSA really didn't have much success moving the football.
Yeah, and I know that third quarter was ugly, frustrating for fans, but ultimately, I don't know how big of a step Tennessee took tonight, but it does feel at minimum they took a step.
Right, because you saw some of the things that were a problem last week were cleaned up. And Josh Heupel, he was not excusing the third quarter. He seemed even kind of annoyed by it still after the game because he knows starting now they can't have quarters like that anymore. If you have a bad quarter like that, South Carolina, Texas A&M, Alabama, so on, that's going to get you beat. So those are the types of stretches this team can't have. And so that kind of mars, I think, what was overall, like you said, Ben, a positive step forward for Tennessee tonight. Absolutely.
Tennessee beats UTSA 45-14, have now won 11 straight games inside of Neyland Stadium. Next Saturday night will be a very big game inside of Neyland Stadium, and we will have plenty of coverage of this win over UTSA and South Carolina Week Up all week long at GoVols247.com. He's Patrick Brown, and I'm Ben McKee.